All right, the regular city council meeting of International Falls will come to order. It is 5:30 on Monday, April 20th. Let me get one more person in the meeting. By Minnesota statute 13D.021, this allows meetings to be conducted by phone or other electronic means under the following conditions. The mayor has determined an in-person meeting or a meeting conducted under section 13D.02 is not practical because of the needs of a health pandemic. The mayor and all councilors participating in the meeting can hear one another and can hear each other's discussion. Attendance by the public is not feasible due to a health pandemic. At least one member of the city council is physically present at the regular meeting unless unfeasible by the health pandemic. And all votes are conducted by roll call, so each member's vote on each issue can be identified and recorded. At this time, our first item is to approve the agenda with additions. The additions that we have are under old business to consider emergency ordinances 34 and 28 to revisions or updates. Under new business, number 2, adopt a resolution approving a premise permit for application for lawful gambling, by the International Falls Voyagers Snowmobile Club at On the Rocks LLC at 412 3rd Street, International Falls. And number 8 on the agenda is to approve municipal advisory service agreement with Northland Securities, Inc. And we have one additional correspondence in our packet, which is from the International Falls Library Board of Trustees. Hearing that, the chair would entertain a motion to accept the agenda with the additions.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilor Buller.
I'll second.
We have a second by Councilor Kraus. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. We'll start with Councilor Deitch.
Aye.
Councilor Nelson?
Aye.
Kraus?
Aye.
And Councilor Buller?
Aye.
And I will vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Our next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of our last regular city council meeting, which was April 6, 2020. Chair would entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
So moved. So moved.
We have a motion by Councilor Kraus. Do we have a second by Councilor Deitch?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and second. Any questions, concerns, anything to add? Hearing none, I'll call the question. Councilor Deitch.
Aye.
Councilor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilor Kraus.
Aye.
And Councilor Buller.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. The next we have is the transfers and claims. We have to the water fund, or to the general fund, $9,951.67. Coming from the water fund, 601, in the amount of $5,559.67. And coming from the 603 sewer fund, which is $4,392 even. We have monies going to the permanent improvement fund of $66,666.66, and that's being split equally from the water and the sewer, the 601 and 603, in the amount of $33,333.33 out of both accounts. Going to the reserve for capital outlay, the 403 fund is going to be $25,760.42. Coming from the water fund, 601, $19,136.17. And coming from the 603 sewer fund in the amount of $6,624.25, for a total in transfers of $102,378.75. Our accounts payable. The City of International Falls regular claims of $454,808.50. We have Airport Commission claims of $11,857.85. And International Falls Library Board claims of $8,883.74 for a total in accounts payable or claims of $475,550.09. Chair would entertain a motion to accept the paying and the transfers of claims.
So moved, Councilor Moore. I so approve.
Okay, we'll go with Councilor Kraus for the motion and Councilor Buller for the second. Is that correct?
That sounds good.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. Question, Councilor Deitch.
Aye.
Councilor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilor Kraus.
Aye.
Councilor Buller.
Aye.
And I will vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Next, we have open audience. I'm going to unmute everybody at this time. If someone has something they'd like to bring to the attention of the City Council that is not on the agenda, please do so at this time. Please state your name for the record if you have something to add. Everybody's unmuted at this time if there's anyone who wants to bring something forward. Okay, hearing none, I'm going to mute everybody again. All right, and I got to unmute Councilor Deitch, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I unmuted the right person. Okay, moving to the agenda. We have the first reading of the ordinance that has to do with tobacco sales in the city limits of International Falls. City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As the Mayor pointed out, this is the first reading of an amendment to the Section 6-25, which relates to tobacco, and Section 1058, which regulates tobacco sales. Excuse me. This particular ordinance is being put before the City Council because in December, President Trump had adopted revisions to the federal law, which made sale to anybody under the age of 21 illegal in the country, and so our ordinance specifically specifies the age of 18 years and above is legal for selling tobacco to. So we reviewed these particular ordinances, made some revisions to change the age to the age of 21 from the age previously of 18. And then we've also added some proposed language that would address electronic nicotine delivery systems. It's abbreviated ENDS, and those are included, and essentially those would include such items as e-cigarettes, vape pens, e-cigars, personal vaporizers, electronic pipes, and any of their component parts. So we've proposed a revision to those two sections of local ordinances to bring us into compliance with federal law. And we would need 2 readings of this particular ordinance. This is the proposed first reading. Before the ordinance would be effective, it needs to be published. The other primary change that I would just draw your attention to is on page 6 of the draft ordinance, and under penalties in the existing ordinance, it identifies some fees that were established back in 1997, I believe it was, when the ordinance, actually 98 was the last time that there was an amendment to this ordinance, and we've increased those. So specifically in item L, penalties, number 1, it talks about licensees. If there's a violation, the first offense would be an administrative fine. Used to be $75, it was increased to $100. The second offense was increased from $200 to $300 at those same licensed premises within a 24-month period. And then the third offense was increased from $250 to $400 for the third offense at the same location, again within a 24-month time period. And then you can see the final sentence there. It says, in addition, after the third offense, the license shall be suspended for not less than 30 days. Previously, it was a 7-day time frame. And so we made some of those revisions to just bring the dollars, to take into account the increases in cost of living and make the financial penalties relatively similar to what they were back in 1998. So I don't have anything additional I would like to offer for your information, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer those.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the city administrator? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a first reading of the proposed ordinance.
Counselor Deitch, so moved.
We have a motion by Councilor Deitch. Do we have a second?
Counselor Nelson, second.
Okay, Councilor Nelson, second. Any discussion on the ordinance? Hearing none, question. Councilor Deitch.
Aye.
Councilor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilor Kraus.
Aye.
Councilor Buller.
Muted.
Oh, I'll unmute him. Councilor Buller.
Hear me? Aye.
Okay.
Hear me, Harley?
I do now.
Huh?
All right, and I'll vote yes, motion carries 5-0. Next, we have the second and final reading of ordinance number 35 of the 5th series. This pertains to blight. Ken, do you want to go through it? This is the same one we had at the last meeting. This is the one that was in the packets.
That's correct, Mayor. This is, again, an ordinance amendment revising Section 4-20 of the Housing Code, and then Section 499, which is violations, and it makes a misdemeanor violation for the enforcement process related to blighted buildings, and also requires some inspections. So there's, again, in the typical ordinance format, the city attorney had reviewed this particular ordinance. We had the first reading at the last meeting. This is the second reading, and I'm not going to go through any of the details because this is the second time that the council has seen this particular proposed ordinance amendment, but you can see the strike-throughs or deletions in the ordinance, and then anything that's underlined would be new language. And again, the city attorney had reviewed the entire section that I referenced for revisions, and those have been incorporated either as additions or deletions. So I can answer any questions if anybody has those.
Anybody have any questions for the administrator? All right. Hearing no questions, the chair would entertain a motion for the second and final reading of ordinance number 35 of the 5th series.
Counselor Deitch, so moved.
We have a motion by Councilor Deitch. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Councilor Buller. Any discussion? Hearing none, question. Councilor Deitch.
Aye.
Councilor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilor Kraus.
Aye.
Councilor Buller.
Aye.
I'll vote yes, motion carries. We will have that to send that to get printed. Next, we have the second and I'm sorry?
Mayor, did you freeze your video? You look so concentrated on one thing there. You haven't moved for a while.
I'm very concentrated. I don't know why my video.
It's mine.
Well, I don't know. Well, I'm really concentrated.
You got close to a pretty good position there, so you're okay.
Okay, we're good. We're moving on. All right. Like, I can do whatever I want. They can't see me. Next, we have the second and final reading of ordinance number 35 of the fifth series, 36 of the fifth series, and this is an additional amendment that will move forward with the ordinance, the blight ordinances. City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. In the last discussion, I misspoke. I referenced, my pages stuck together, and I referenced Section 4-99. Actually, this particular, the previous one was relating to Sections 1051 and 1099. This particular ordinance, ordinance number 36, references the housing sections. And again, the purpose of this particular ordinance amendment is to really shorten the timeframes and processes that we take to undertake blight enforcement.
Okay. Chair would entertain a motion to have the second and final reading of that ordinance.
Councilor Deitch, so moved.
We have a motion by Councilor Deitch. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Councilor Kraus. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Question. Councilor Deitch.
Aye.
Councilor Kraus. Councilor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilor Kraus.
Aye.
Councilor Buller.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. I can't get over that my video doesn't work. All right. Next, we're.
Great. Yeah.
I'm sure you guys all appreciate that. Next is to approve the quote from DH Wireless for portable data network, mobile portable amplifier, and Verizon data plan for the chemical assessment team in the amount of $4,909.64 and $36 a month. Chief Manassa, if you would like to discuss that.
Yes. So this is exactly what it sounds like. It's a portable data network. So when we're providing our CAT team services anywhere from here to the border of North Dakota, where cell phones and signal is spotty, this helps create a network on our more complicated equipment produced by Ray Systems. This is a way to get the information from the field to a host laptop, from the host laptop to the bigger system. So if we're on a scene, we can have live data transmitted to the state or anybody else that runs Keep equipment or Ray Systems equipment. So we could be interacting with another team, getting consultations on that. The MPA is a mobile portable amplifier, same type of thing. It's basically a cell phone hotspot on steroids is how it's described. So anywhere we have a minor signal or anything that's slightly usable, we can amplify that signal and make a network up to 40 users on a cell phone. So one of the best examples I have for that is when we had the train derailment down in Harrisburg. We just happened to be in a spot that cell phone coverage was very spotty. We had in the beginning there, and as it rolled on, literally hundreds of people on their cell phones didn't work there. They had to go out by the highway or anywhere else. So we could have set up a portable network and had cell phone service there as well. So again, this is just something that would help us do our job as a CAT team servicing the areas in the state. And then it's also something that we can use locally in a time of need should it arise.
And am I correct in all of this is funded from the CAT team, and it's 100% covered? It doesn't come anything out of the city. We get reimbursed. Is that right?
Correct. It's reimbursed. So we pay up front with city funds, and that's part of our $60,000 a year contract. So that would get reimbursed through the contract rate. And then the cellular data plan is the same thing. Most of the other teams already carry these. It's just part of a monthly expense that would be shown monthly through the city, but reimbursed yearly on the CAT contract.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Chief Manassa? Okay, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the quote.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilor Kraus. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second by Councilor Buller. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Councilor Deitch.
Aye.
Councilor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilor Kraus.
Aye.
And Councilor Buller.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Next, we have the quote from Alex Air Apparatus for SCBA compressor bottles, labor equipment for the amount of $57,867. Chief Manassa.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to try and explain this the best I can. I believe you guys have the proposal in front of you. So we had budgeted for this year to purchase an SCBA compressor. Ours is getting tired. We fill a lot of bottles for outside entities that are running 4,500-pound PSI bottles. Our system does not handle those very well. It's not really meant for that, so we're really taxing the system. An SCBA compressor consists of 3 components. We have a fill station, a compressor, and a cascade system. So the cascade system is larger bottles that store air made by the compressor, and then the fill station is the safe place to fill them. We got 3 quotes, one from Alex Air, one from Clary's Safety, and one from Arctic Compressors. Alex Air was the most expensive quote. The reason for that is we had a little additional quote on there, and that was to keep our existing fill station and move that into our trailer so we had mobile air for steam. Again, if we had a big fire or something, we could fill bottles on steam. I would still recommend that we go with Alex Air Apparatus. Scott Safety Compressors, they are slowly pulling out of the market. They got out of Mexico this year, and by the end of this year, they will no longer be doing compressors in the United States, so that's not a good sign. So I would tend to shy away from them. And Arctic is a small company. They're just not built the same as the Bauer that's quoted in the documentation you have. I think I'm going to leave it at that, and if there's questions, I will certainly try to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions for Chief Manassa? I guess I have one question on it. If we just installed into the building and we didn't try to set up into a mobile trailer, I am correct that that's what the assumption is that we would do, correct?
No, we would like to go into the trailer and use the existing fill station. That's the $57,000. I believe on the top I have in red reduced quote estimate. I think if we did not do the trailer and did not do all that other stuff, it came in at $44,767.
Okay.
So that made it a comparable quote to the other one.
So if we just did the Alex Air Apparatus and we did the $44,767, would we be able to still utilize our stuff in the future and maybe put that $13,000 into something that we could budget for it in 2021, or is that something we can do later, or is this put it all together and it makes the most sense?
I think if we put it all together, it makes the most sense. This was really a discussion that I know the administrator would like to have at a budget and finance meeting. Partly because one of the other items we budgeted for this year is a Plimo vent system for the fire hall. What we found out is the numbers we had gotten from Plimo vent are not even close to realistic. So that other side of money that we had budgeted for this year is not going to be used. So I guess the $7,800 we're over. to be taken from that. We aren't going to use the other money that and I can't remember off the top of my head what we budgeted. I think it was 80,000 for the final event, or 75,000. Maybe the administrator can correct me on that, but that money is not going to be used this year.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Chief Manassa?
Mr. Mayor, I've got one quick question. So, Chief, you had mentioned that we fill bottles for other entities. Are they paying for those services, or are we just doing that pro bono, or how does that work?
No, they are paying for it. So the council approved a fee schedule, I believe in January this year, that was on the fee schedule. So we are charging per bill per bottle.
Okay,
So
I just wanted to make sure that was on the record. I thought that was the case, but I couldn't remember for sure, so thank you.
we're certainly not going to pay for the compressor, but it's something.
Well, at least we're not, giving it away, because that is wear and tear on our machine. So
Absolutely.
it makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief Manassa? All right, then the chair would entertain a motion to accept the bid, the quote from Alex Air Apparatus.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councillor Kraus. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Councillor Nelson. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. Councillor Deitch.
Aye.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Kraus.
Aye.
And Councillor Buller.
Aye.
All right, I will vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Next,
Chair Garoba?
yes.
Chief Manassa, I have another meeting at 6 o'clock. I'm hoping it's okay that I jump off and get onto that. I don't believe I have anything else on the agenda for tonight.
I don't believe so either.
Just a report.
I'm sorry?
Just a monthly report.
Yeah, the monthly report, but we have that in paper, so that's good. And thank you for sending me that information today on the questions that I asked. It'll be helpful later. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, next we have under old business to remove from the table to request to waive exempt fees at the Nomad Hotel or Motel. First, we would need a motion to remove it from the table.
I'll move to remove it.
Okay, we have a motion by Councillor Buller to remove it from the table. Do we have a second?
Second,
We have a second by Councillor Deitch. Any discussion? Hearing none. Question, Councillor Deitch.
Aye.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Kraus.
Aye.
Councillor Buller.
Aye.
And I will vote yes. We will remove it from the table. I'm going to open up all of the people. I don't see Miles on, but I will open it up to have everyone be able to participate. Miles, are you online with us?
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
Mayor, City Administrator, I got an email this morning from Miles, and he indicated that he needs more time to deal with current issues, and he said he'd come back to the council at another time, so he wasn't expecting that he would be on the line today, and he wasn't available at the last meeting either, and the council had tabled it to tonight.
Okay.
So I recommend it just come off the agenda until some future meeting when he's prepared to address the city council in regard to his concerns.
Okay, I can accept that. So at this point, we have it before us. The recommendation is to just remove it from the agenda until he's ready to come forward. I don't think we need any formal action on that. Is the council okay with that at this point? Just removing it from the agenda until he makes contact with the city administrator to come to a meeting or to be available. Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
I would say that since we tabled it and we have it in front of us, maybe a more appropriate action would to have a motion to just take no action on the recommendation, on the question.
I'm fine by that.
Okay, so I move that we take no action at this time and then wait to hear from Mr. Wilcox.
Fair enough. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilor Kraus. We have a second by Councilor Buller. Any discussion? With no discussion, call the question. Councilor Deitch.
Aye.
Councilor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilor Kraus.
Aye.
Councilor Buller.
Aye.
And I will vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. We will have this in the future if they make contact, and we'll put it back on later. Next, we have considering closing or keeping the access closed to both boat landings. It is currently on the table. The chair would entertain a motion to take it from the table.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilor Kraus. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Deitch. Any discussion? Hearing none. Question. Councilor Deitch.
Aye.
Councilor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilor Kraus.
Aye.
Councilor Buller.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. All right, it is before us. The question is, we have pushed this out every 2 weeks on the boat landings. I'm actually just going to hand this off to Councilor Kraus. He had called me with some concerns, and I think that they're very valid, and I'm going to hand this off to him at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I went ahead and had a conversation with Sheriff Hedlund of Koochiching County. I also had a conversation with Officer Darren Kittleson, Conservation Officer with the DNR. Currently on the river, the only landing that is, there's actually 3 landings that are open, the 2 landings in Cadet. The state actually required them to open them, so they are open, so that is Wheeler's Point. And then I can't think of the name of the other one on the river, but they're open. And then the 3rd landing that is currently open is Cudis' Landing out of the Junction. I had in my conversation with Officer Kittleson, he noted that there were 9 boats fishing out of Cudis' Landing today. The sturgeon catch and release season is open, but the actual sturgeon season opens on Friday the 24th for keep, and it's a pretty big deal. Although in our conversation we both kind of agreed that opening the landing may be an attractive nuisance, and it may attract individuals from other areas to our area. Given that Cudis' Landing has 9 people fishing on a Monday, pretty much led us to believe that it may be in the area's best interest to open up Shorewood. And then in a conversation with Commissioner Pavlik that I had this weekend, it sounds like the county board will probably follow our lead on this, and it might behoove us to spread out the fishermen more than having them all concentrate at the junction, because currently the junction cannot close. The state has that landing and they will not close it. So although it's an attractive nuisance and I'm not excited to have people come up, the conservation officer did note that there is a party that traveled over 300 miles to be at that landing to fish. I just think that we need to spread them out. If people are going to fish, we need to spread it out. Otherwise, we're going to have cars all the way out to the road out at Cudis. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that? I did. Go ahead, please.
Councilor Buller here. I think it's a good idea. I just hate to hear it get over the news on Duluth all of a sudden that the landings are open up here. Come on up. But I think if we can keep it as private as we can, this is just first the ones that are up here, and to allow locals to participate more off those landings because a lot of them don't have private accesses. I think it'd be a good idea to see stuff on it.
Okay. I reached,
Mr. Mayor?
yes.
Oh, no, you go ahead and finish your thought and then I'll talk.
Well, as I alluded to earlier when I was saying goodbye to Chief Manassa, I did send out to our department heads today and Administrator Anderson some questions about the COVID-19 things that we have going on and what's on our agenda, and I kind of reached out to all of them for their thoughts and their expertise, and the Public Works Director told me that we safely can open up the boat launches. Most of our department heads were okay with it. The one concern that we have is the pressures of getting in and out of the boat landing with multiple people being in the area. And I think to that concern is what Councilor Kraus just mentioned. If we're the only ones that are closed, everywhere else is going to have the public health issue because there's going to be more people utilizing those landings. So I would agree, and I also am so conflicted on this because we're in a weird spot where we're being asked to have people go outside, go do things, but we have that restricting us. And I think there's been a conflicting message between the governor's office where they're saying go out and be in public, do some recreation, stay 6 feet apart, and how do you engage in these activities and be able to do that? And it's very similar to our parks, our playground situation. How do you keep 6 feet apart at a playground with kids? How do you keep 6 feet apart at a boat landing with people trying to get their boats in and out? So any decision that we make today on this, I want to really, really stress we still need people to be doing the right things. Wear your masks in public. Try to keep that 6 feet of distance. And this does not by any means, if we choose to open up the landings, this is not saying we want people to come up here and get a boat guide to go out fishing. You don't live with them. They're not in your family. So this is for family use to be able to utilize the landings if we open it up. And I feel so conflicted in this because there's so much mixed information between the state and local governments and even on the federal level. But I am open to opening up the governor says we can go fishing, we should have access to do that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, so I agree with everything you just said, and then to kind of add on, one thing that Conservation Officer Kittleson did ask is if we are to open, would it be possible to put up signage, especially at Shorewood at the parking lot, for no camping or no overnight parking? Because one of the major issues they're having right now is one of the groups that's currently at the junction is camping there, and he will be evicting them this evening. He already told them they can't, so he's going to check it this evening. If they're there, he's going to evict them. And he thought that maybe as a way to prevent people from camping at the landings and congregating, which is against the order right now, to maybe put up some temporary signage that says, or draft or maybe put in an emergency city ordinance that no camping at the landing. He did request that, and I guess we don't have Chief Maston on the line to know if it's something that the police officers would enforce or not, but I would assume that if we were to put an ordinance in place, they would follow our directive on that. I just kind of wanted your guys' thoughts on that.
I'm fine with it. I guess I'm perplexed that people are camping in the Shorewood. That just floors me, but anybody else on the council, any of their thoughts?
Well, I can actually clarify that. What had happened is when he approached the group that is currently camping at the junction, they were pretty taken aback, like, where are we supposed to camp? And he didn't have an answer for them because there is nowhere to camp right now. The campgrounds are all closed as per the state order. So he's afraid that they're going to find locations to camp, and one attractive nuisance that he thinks is the upper parking area where you're supposed to park your boats at Shorewood Landing, which is actually across Shorewood Drive from the landing. So he was afraid, and he also noted that individuals have been known to camp on the riverbank between Woodland Apartments and PTA. So his I guess request would be, if we're going to do this, that we make it pretty clear that you're not allowed to camp in these locations, because people do.
Ken, I have a question for you. We shouldn't need to put up, get a special ordinance. We already have an ordinance that says you can't camp. We just have to put up signs, right?
Mayor, I think that is correct. I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but I believe that we do not allow overnight parking and camping in those locations or other locations in the city, quite frankly. So the issue would just be is whether or not it would be appropriate to place a sign up there as a disincentive to people that might think that that's okay. So clearly, if it's a violation of our ordinance, the police department will enforce it, and I can verify that after the meeting with the police chief and review our ordinances.
Well, and as follow-up to that, thank you, Councilor Kraus. As a follow-up to that, too, I also think that if we do if we make the choice to open up the boat landings, with the signage, I would like to also put, all the consistent messaging that we're getting from the Minnesota Department of Health with the 6 feet of, distance, and, if we're willing to do that. All right, so we do have the consideration for the boat landings at this time. What is the council's pleasure with the boat landings?
Councilor Beach?
Yes.
I'm fine with opening them. I think it's just a matter of time before we would open them anyway for the spring fishing season, if it should go on.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I would accept a motion if anyone's willing to offer one.
Mr. Mayor, one more point real quick, I'm sorry. And again, in the conversation with the sheriff and with Conservation Officer Kittleson, they did ask, we're in a unique situation in Cooperstown County. It's my understanding that we have one case, but that can change rapidly. And I think that I don't have an issue with us opening them, but I mean, if the cases start to get overwhelming, I think we would have to look at closing them again. So I kind of want that language available, if that makes sense.
Well, and I think to that issue is one of the issues that Ken and I have kind of talked about too. I don't want to be wishy-washy on our decisions, and I understand that we have to navigate these waters a little bit differently than we have with other things. You don't want to make you have to make decisions that you need to make, and I'm okay with opening them, but I think once we open them, I mean, I would hate to start closing them because we start having more cases. I mean, if that's the case, we should just keep them closed. That's the way I look at it.
And I agree with that, but again, I think in fairness to kind of spread things out, I think we're kind of obligated to right now. We're lucky. We've got one case, but I don't necessarily believe it's going to remain that way.
Fair enough. All right, well, Chair would entertain a motion.
I move to open the boat landings.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Kraus to open the boat landings. Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second by Councilor Buller. I think we've had pretty good discussion on this, but I definitely will open up discussion if anyone has something to add. I'm good.
Just add quickly, Mayor. I just want to explain my vote because I'll be voting no, and I understand I'm the minority in this. The entire purpose was to flatten the curve, and we're doing that. And I think this is all premature. especially where we have these protests happening at the governor's house in Minnesota, that I think this is going to be overwhelming. I don't want it to be overwhelming, but I do have concern it would be overwhelming. And by the time we realize it's overwhelming, it's too late. So I just wanted to clarify why my vote is going to be no.
I think that's a fair consideration.
Councilor Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor, Councilor Dietz here.
Yep.
I agree with Councilor Nelson. My concern is for our locals when fishing season does open, which is a ways away yet, I would be more in favor of opening up them at that date to accommodate our locals.
I guess my question to that is, and I am open to any suggestions, how do we, I mean, we've been pretty proactive of saying that the boat landings are closed, please don't come up here. The governor's new recreational ordinance basically says go fishing, but go in your own neighborhood. If we open it, we have no control on who comes up here. That's the nature of the beast. So if we open it right now, we're opening it for the law-abiding citizens that live in this area using our facilities. We can't stop people from coming up to the cities. They're already coming up from the cities or anywhere else. They're already doing something they're not supposed to be doing. So there's really no. We're open when we decide to open this, we are opening it for the locals. That's the only person we're opening it up for.
That's correct. I guess my comment would be hold it on for a couple of weeks yet.
Fair enough.
It doesn't have to be decided today. Very few of our locals would probably be using the access that we're talking about. If they are going fishing, they would probably, going sturgeon fishing, they probably would go down to the junction because that is the major area in the Birchdale area that they load their boats. And I realize that Birchdale might be closed still too, but I would put this off for a little bit yet.
I have to respectfully disagree. With sturgeon season opening next Friday, as an avid sturgeon fisherman, you can, on any given time, there's 20 to 30 boats up by the dam. So I would have to disagree. It's just as popular as anywhere else.
Well, and I also look at it as our job is to protect the public, and if we don't open up our landings and make it available for people to spread the people out along the river to be able to access it, our local citizens that are going to want to go fishing, they're going to go to the junction, they're going to go to Birchdale, and they're going to overload those, and it's the same issue of public health. In some capacity, I believe that we're helping in some way to be able to have people be able to be spread across the river, across the lake, to be able to have those access points. So I do understand your thoughts there, Councillor Deitch, and I respect them, but I do think that if we open up our landings, it gives people more opportunity to not go to a backed up boat launch. Any other discussion? All right, hearing no other discussion, I will call the question. Councillor Deitch.
I'm kind of torn right in between. I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
What did he say?
Abstain.
Abstain.
Councillor Nelson.
No.
Councillor Kraus.
Reluctantly, yes.
Councillor Buller.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. We have 3 for the motion, 1 against the motion, and 1 abstention. Next, we have on the agenda. Oh, please.
Mayor, a couple questions then. What's the effective date for opening these? I mean, with the discussion about preparing signs and posting those at the two locations, and then just having time to be able to get porta potties and get trash cans and get the barricades and stuff removed, is it appropriate for us to just make that effective day after tomorrow and give our staff time tomorrow to prepare the signs and get everything ready? Does the council have any objection with that?
Well, everyone was able to hear. I'm sorry?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, one more.
Yeah.
I think we got to give them a little more time than that to make signs, get signs put together and everything. And if we're open by Friday for sturgeon fishing, I think that'd be adequate. Get signs up Thursday.
I think that's a fair. Is everyone else okay with Friday? Putting up the signs Thursday and opening on Friday?
I would be okay with that, but if they can do it sooner, that'd be great. I know the material that was passed in the packet said they need 24 hours. So that would give them 72 hours, which I'm not against. But I say, yeah, shoot for Friday, but if they can get it done sooner, that'd be great.
Fair enough.
Well, you got to realize too that the city's on limited staff right now too, so that's another issue. So that's why I'm thinking maybe Thursday would be probably a better target. If they can do it sooner, yeah, we'll leave that up to Ted.
Okay.
Call for Thursday, I think.
All right. Let's make this official. Come up with a date, and we'll make an official motion on it.
So as I made the original motion, I will amend my motion to say no later than Friday, April 24th.
Okay. We already voted on that last one, so.
Oh, yeah, we did. My bad. Well, okay, so I move that so I'll change it. I will make a motion that we have the boat landing open no later than 8 a.m. Friday morning.
Okay. We have a motion to open the boat landings no later than 8 a.m. Friday morning. Do we have a second?
Well, I seconded his last one. I guess I better second this one too.
Yeah, you better. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, question. Councillor Deitch.
Since it is opening, I will vote aye.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Kraus.
Aye.
Councillor Buller.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Next we will go to the consider an ordinance amendment to allow chickens within the city. So this came up at the last meeting in the event that through the events of COVID-19 there has been egg shortages in the area, and we have not had an official petition, but we have had multiple people ask in the event that the city would look at allowing chickens in the city. And there was, in your packet, there was a couple of, a model ordinance which was from a couple years back. That was one of the first times I remember us looking at the chicken ordinance. It's a draft ordinance. It was updated, as you can tell, by the Duluth City Council's ordinance. It's a license to keep chickens in the city. Under Section C, there is a typo, but it basically says you can't have more than 5 chickens. You can't have a rooster. There's a list of specifics on there that we could look at, and I don't suggest we take this model ordinance. I don't know. I'm just going to open this up for discussion to the council at this point, and if we feel the need to move forward with it, we can do that. Council's discussion. Yes. Please, Councillor Deitch.
Okay. I've had several calls on this. The majority of them said they would prefer not to have chickens. To me, it doesn't make a difference, but by going with the public input on the calls that I got, most of them said no, they do not want the chickens.
Okay. Anybody else? I did,
What?
please.
This is Council Lord. I did have a couple negative calls on it also.
Okay. I reached out today, again, to the department heads, specifically, well, all the department heads, and not shocking to me, none of the department heads wanted to see chickens in the city limits, and there was a host of reasons for it, but the big picture is I don't think that we should be, we've made decisions on whether we should keep a boat landing open or closed, and things that we already had available in our city, and closing some of those things because of the COVID-19. I'm scared that if 3 months ago, the residents of International Falls did not want chickens, something changed. Now we had people that came forward that said that they did want to have chickens in town, and I don't want to use the word blown over, but if this blows over in 6 months or a year, we're going to be stuck with the chicken ordinance that we're not going to be easily able to remove if it's a problem. I've gotten a couple of emails from people. I've had a couple people talk to me. One person actually remembers when the city did have a chicken ordinance and remembers why they got rid of the chicken ordinance. It was because that it was attracting rats. So I will entertain a motion to move forward with a chicken ordinance, not the specific chicken ordinance that we have in our packet today. I will accept a motion to move forward with a chicken ordinance, or I will also accept a motion to no longer consider the chicken ordinance. Your pleasure.
I'll make a motion to no longer consider it.
We have a motion to no longer consider the chicken ordinance. Do we have a second?
Second, Deitch.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Buller. We have a second by Councilor Deitch to no longer consider the chicken ordinance. Any discussion?
Mayor, I would just note, I had a few people reach out to me that were in favor of the chicken rule, but I completely agree with you that it's difficult to make these sorts of decisions in a time of this sort of crisis, because we can't reverse it as easily as we're running into it. So I would just like to clarify, just in case anyone that calls me is listening.
Well, and I'm actually not even opposed to having chickens in the city. I'm opposed on how it's coming forward, and it's coming forward for all the right reasons. People are scared, people are concerned, and I get all of that. I did notice today, and actually all last week, there have been chickens in Super One. There have been eggs in Super One. Both grocery stores have been well stocked for eggs basically since we did this. I think we're past the toilet paper fiasco. I think we're past the egg fiasco. I'm hoping that we get more reasonable prices on eggs now that the demand has subsided somewhat. And I hope that as we move forward, we look back on today and we see that we made a decision based on the facts and where we've been as a community, and I think we're going to have eggs in the grocery store. So, any other discussion? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I too want to note that as the person who brought this forward initially, I have received one phone call about going forward with it, which was the individual that first approached me. But I too have fielded multiple phone calls against it. So unfortunately, I think I have to, at this point, agree that not now. But it's not dead forever. It's just not alive right now, if that makes sense.
I hope someday it does just die, though.
That's a positive call. Can we poll the citizens and see if I'm a crazy chicken lady? Why did I get all the floor calls?
Because you grew up on a farm.
I didn't though.
Well, you grew up in the woods.
Mr. Mayor, one more question.
Yes.
If by chance, you have issues with stray animals, stray dogs, stray cats, is our animal shelter set up to take care of chickens?
I'm not aware of that.
No, but the restaurants are.
All right, I think we've beat this one. All right, we have a motion and a second to not allow chickens in the city. Question, Councillor Deitch.
Aye.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Kraus.
Aye.
Councillor Buller.
Aye.
And I will vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Sure, we'll talk about this again within a year. All right. Next is to consider emergency ordinances number 34 and 28 for revisions or updates. So I have had two businesses ask for Section 2 of the emergency order that the city put in place to be removed, which is Section 2 is grocery stores, delis, convenience stores, gas stations, essential services that have prepared food not available for public consumption and must have all such food prepackaged. A, public may not have access to open-air packaged items, and B, public may not have access to self-serve beverages such as fountain soda or coffee. That is specifically the piece that I have been asked to have us look at. And the reasoning behind it was when we put this into effect, specifically Super One and County Market, both owned by Miners Incorporated, were already, when this went into effect, they were already handling all of they were in compliance immediately when we put this in. They had made the steps in advance to be compliant when this went into effect. Since then, they have changed all of their employees must be wearing masks. They also have put arrows in their stores on how you can go shopping. They've been very proactive on their COVID-19 measures. They've been wiping down all of the carts. And so specifically they had asked if it can be lifted at this time because they feel that they have enacted a lot of safety measures for their store that would allow them to serve food from the delis. I've also been in conversation with some of the gas stations. The gas stations said that they're doing fine, but it really is slowing down because they've moved all the coffee from being self-serve to being behind the counters. So as they're serving the customers, they're essentially becoming coffee shop employees, and what we were trying to get away from is people standing around in line are now standing around even longer in the lines in front of the service counter as they're trying to check out. So one of the things that I think we did trying to be proactive has helped, but I also think we're in a different spot now than what we were 3 weeks ago when we put this into effect. We have less customers in our community due to Fort Francis being closed off from International Falls with the border being closed. We also have had our first case of COVID-19 in our community, so that has heightened people's awareness. More people are wearing masks. More people are taking the stay-at-home order seriously. So the request is to remove Section 2 from the emergency city ordinance. Anyone's thoughts on that? No thoughts on that?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I guess I wouldn't have a problem with that. I have spoke to some individuals that drive trucks, particularly logging truck, and I have witnessed said individuals actually walk through the drive-through line to try and get food because of the changes. I know that they're separate issues, but they did note that if this stuff was available at, say, a gas station, that they wouldn't have to stand in line at the drive-thru to try and get something during their work day. So I wouldn't be against opening up as long as we can do it safely. And I do think you're right. I think that the spirit of the law was to prevent lines, and here we are with lines as they're waiting for their coffee to be served by the employees at these stations. So I'd be okay lifting that restriction.
Okay. Anybody else have thoughts on that?
I just have a question for the deli for the open air unpackaged items. So I know at the checkouts they have those glass bins up, but I've never looked to see if those are up at the deli.
I guess I don't understand your question. One more time.
Like, you know when you check out and there's like it's like a big piece of
Plexiglass.
not glass, but essentially like functioning like glass.
Yep.
Yeah. Do they have that at the deli?
They don't have that. They don't have that at the deli, but they do have all the employees are wearing masks now that are in the grocery store, and they are still almost 6 feet apart because they have the big glass container. So it's not. They're 6 feet apart, but they don't have the shield.
Both delis have a sneeze guard over everything that's open. The only people that would have access to it would be the employees behind the desk, or the counter, if that makes sense. But the sneeze guard is on
The whole case. Does that answer your question, Councilman Nelson?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns, thoughts? Well, I would open up if anyone is willing to remove Section 2 from the emergency ordinance, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to remove Section 2.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Kraus to remove Section 2 from the emergency ordinance. Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Councilor Nelson. Any discussion?
Mayor.
Yes.
Mayor, as city administrator, just a procedural question. If the council moves forward with this action, then I presume that we will consider this action adopting an emergency ordinance, amending the existing emergency ordinance number 34 to delete Section 2. So we'll do that, and it'll be effective upon publication.
Yes. Yes.
Or immediately because of its emergency nature.
Ooh, let's do immediately because of its emergency nature.
Well, I think immediately is fine because it's going to take them a little time to get everything all set up anyway. So, yeah, I would say just immediately.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call the question. Councilor Deitch.
Aye.
Councilor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilor Kraus.
Aye.
Councilor Buller.
All right.
And I will vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. The last thing, and it is not on the agenda, but it is part of the COVID-19. Oh, I'm sorry. We're still on section 28. Resolution number 28-20. This is the emergency declaration of emergency for the city of International Falls. Ken, did you have anything to add there specifically about what was highlighted in our packets?
No, Mayor. I included both of those items, the emergency ordinance as well as the resolution declaring an emergency, local emergency, because I wasn't sure what exactly needed to be amended based on your request of me. So they were both included. I
Gotcha.
on everything.
So we don't actually have anything to look at resolution number 28. My last piece of old business, which is part of the COVID-19, I just want to have council consideration on removing the signs at the parks. Again, it's that conflicting information that I have. 2 weeks ago, the governor closed all the parks. We put up signs closing all of our city parks so that people can't utilize that. And then now it's been opened up and we still have our signs up. So I'm just asking if everyone is fine with us taking down the signs in the parks and officially opening those up.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Counselor Deitch is the
Okay. So we don't need a motion because we never made a motion to put them up. We were just following the governor's orders. So everyone's fine with removing the signs for the parks?
I'm on board.
Okay. So, all right. So then we'll go to the consent agenda. We haven't even got to new business yet, guys. Consent agenda. The consent agenda is we have 2 items on there. There is no discussion. We have to renew the service level agreement for administration of revenue recapture with the state of Minnesota Department of Revenue and the ambulance service and authorized signatures. And then second, we have the approval of the mutual confidential non-disclosure agreement between Mid-Continent Communications and the city of International Falls and authorized signatures. The chair would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Counselor Deitch, so moved.
Okay, we have a Counselor Deitch and Counselor Buller seconded it. Call the question. Counselor Deitch.
Aye.
Counselor Nelson.
Aye.
Counselor Kraus.
Aye.
Counselor Buller.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Next, we have the consideration of liquor license, I believe. Consider license for On the Rocks LLC for on-sale liquor license, Sunday liquor license, off-sale liquor license, restaurant, jukebox, pool table, effective on June 1, 2020. Chair would entertain a motion to consider those licenses.
So moved.
We have a motion by Counselor Kraus. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Nelson. Any discussion? Hearing none, question. Counselor Deitch.
Aye.
Counselor Nelson.
Aye.
Counselor Kraus.
Aye.
Counselor Buller.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Next, yes.
Mayor, this is Betty Bergstrom calling in. Just wondering if you could see if Terry or Tony are out there. I had spoken with them and they said they may be on the call today. Could you maybe just see if they're available and then wanted to speak?
I definitely can. Tony, Terry, are either of you there that would like to speak on this application? All right, I'm going with there may not be. Okay. All right, next we have a follow-up to the last item, which is adopt a resolution allowing a premise permit for lawful gambling by the International Falls Voyager Snowmobile Club at On the Rocks LLC. And Chair would entertain a motion for that one.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Councillor Buller. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Councillor Kraus. Any discussion? Hearing none. Question, Councillor Deitch.
Aye.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Kraus.
Aye.
Councillor Buller.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Next, consider the Kuching Technology Initiative request to reallocate $17,125 of Blandon Foundation grant funds to COVID-19 related support. And I did get an email from Jim Yount today saying that that number is lower. And I believe we have Jim on. And I'll see if I can't get him unmuted. All right, Jim. You available? I see he's on here, it's just not talking.
Star 6.
Star 6, Jim, if you're on a phone. He's a tech guy, he should know this.
Okay, how about now?
There, now I hear you.
Okay, I'm good with here on my laptop, but that's my job, is fixing that kind of stuff. So yes, this was originally a proposal to create a web portal for the City of International Falls. And the originally requested amount was the number that Harley mentioned, $17,125. We had a very nice competitive group of proposals for the Blandon Foundation money that round, and we did approve the web portal project, but we only approved it for $11,726. However, once the COVID crisis hit Minnesota, the Blandon Foundation contacted all of the Blandon broadband communities and authorized them to reallocate any unspent monies as part of whatever we thought would be an appropriate response to the COVID-19 crisis. And so we identified 3 projects which had not yet begun. This was the largest of them. With the 2 other projects added in, there's a total of $17,776 available that we can reallocate. We have reallocated so far only $2,000 of that for a device which uses ultraviolet light to disinfect virtual reality headsets, which we had purchased for use in healthcare, Alzheimer's training, through the Predicting Aging Options, and also for use in mental health activities for nursing home patients. But as I correctly anticipated and contacted the company, they confirmed that that same device can be used to disinfect N95 and other PPE masks. So we approved spending $2,000 on purchasing one of those. And we may invest other money in similar projects as we identify priority causes. We might not reallocate all of that $17,000 to other projects, but we are requesting your permission to do so. The check had not yet been issued from CHEDA to the City of International Falls. All we would need is your approval for that reallocation. You would not need a check to reimburse those funds.
And Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, it is $7,126?
Also, if you have any projects that you think are worth us considering for funding, you could also entertain those, but that would be a separate thing.
Okay. And Jim, am I correct in saying that it's $7,126? All right. All right, so the question before us is to basically not accept the money that KTI was going to give to the city to help build a web portal. We've never received the monies, and KTI wants to reallocate those funds to support the COVID-19 crisis. Chair would entertain a motion to allow that reallocation of funds.
I'll move.
We have a motion by Councillor Kraus. Do we have a second? Any second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion or a second by Councillor Deitch. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I think given the circumstances, this is probably the best use for the money to go ahead and reallocate it to help fight the coronavirus versus utilizing it for the web portal, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Question, Councillor Deitch.
Aye.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Kraus.
Aye.
Councillor Buller.
Aye.
And I will vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Next is the informational piece. It is regarding the International Falls Area Chamber of Commerce request to Coochian County to extend payment of property taxes and abate penalties. Do you have anything to add on that one?
No, Mayor, it's fairly self-explanatory. The Chamber just had copied us on a letter to the county auditor and the commissioners requesting that, and should that go forward, there's a couple different components to that. Abating the penalties is one issue. The other would be is delaying payment of property taxes to the suggested time as late as August 15th, and that would have some cash flow implications for the city because our first property tax settlement is in the beginning of July, and that is to reimburse us for the first 6 months of costs that the city's incurred since January 1st. So that could create some hardship for us, as well as the fact that we haven't received any local government aid funds and won't until the first week in July as well.
All right. Does anyone have any questions for the city administrator regarding that request? All right. Next, we have the hiring of summer employees. In your packet, you will find the Public Works Department has made a list of following students that he's requesting to hire, and then we also have one from Chief Manassa for his summer help that has worked with the Blight program. The chair would entertain a motion to hire those individuals unless we have some concerns.
So moved, Councillor Deitch.
We have a motion by Councillor Deitch to approve all summer staff. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Councillor Buller. All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. Question. Councillor Deitch.
Councillor Deitch.
Yep. Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Kraus.
Aye.
Councillor Buller.
Aye.
And I will vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Next, we have the cooperative construction agreement between the Minnesota Department of Transportation and the City of International Falls for the Highway 53 reconstruction project. We did not get updated information, so we're just going to pass on that. We'll come back to that at a future date and time. Next, we have the addition to our agenda, which is to approve the mutual advisory service agreement with Northland Securities. Administrator Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. The particular agreement that you're referencing is included in the packet. I know George Eilertson is part of the Zoom group monitoring the meeting, but this is simply an agreement between the City of International Falls and Northland Securities. Northland Securities will be serving as the municipal advisor for the upcoming proposed bond issue that will be supported with sales tax revenues to do our local projects in 2020 and street and utility improvements projects in 2021.
Okay. All right. We have a service agreement. I realize I missed number 7, Joe. All right. So the chair would entertain a motion to approve the municipal advisory service agreement with Northland Securities.
It's almost,
We have a motion by Councilor Buller. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Councilor Kraus. Any discussion? Hearing none, question. Councilor Deitch.
Aye.
Councilor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilor Kraus.
Aye.
Councilor Buller.
Aye.
And I will vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. We're going to move on to number 9. Next we have the municipal advisory service. No, we don't. We just did that. Next we have the resolution to approve the bond sale on May 18th, 2020, to issue $5,745,000 in general obligation sales tax bonds to finance the 2020 and 2021 public improvement projects and the city share of Highway 53. Let's see, I see you're online. And you are unmuted. Go ahead, George.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and thank you for your the vote you just had regarding the municipal advisor agreement. The resolution that is this agenda item simply sets the bond sale for May 18th. That's really the purpose for this step. Tonight you're not issuing bonds. This is the step calling for the sale. And like it's noted, at this stage it's sized at $5,745,000. Working with your administrative and finance staff on structuring the debt, we've got it financed over a 12-year term and sized with annual sales tax revenues available for debt service at $550,000 per year. So again, we won't know what those final interest rates are until May 18th, but certainly we've trended nicely down, right, Councilmember Cross? Looking back a little bit at what numbers we ran for you, in the not too distant past, and we're projecting right now a 12-year term at 1.96%. And again, with that, we're probably being conservative because through this bond, we're going to work with, or the city rather, will work with Standard & Poor's for the assignment of a bond rating, and we're assuming an A rating. And certainly, city staff, council, myself, everybody certainly hopes that we can achieve a higher rating than that. If we do, the interest rate will be less. Looking back towards the turn of the year, we were about 0.2% higher for an average interest rate. So hopefully the trend continues into May 18th, or at least we've got a market that's relatively flat. But again, we'll know that May 18th, and we'll be working with your city staff likely the first part of May in the assignment of that new bond rating with Standard & Poor's. So Mayor and members of the council, that's your action for consideration tonight is simply to approve the resolution calling for that sale on May 18th.
Okay, so with that,
I can address any questions you may have.
Well, with that being said, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the bond sale.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilor Kraus. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Buller. Any discussions or questions for George?
I just have one question, Mr. Mayor. And it may be too soon, but George, when is the earliest call date on this? Have we established that yet?
The the call date for this bond we've got at February 1st of 2028.
Okay.
And if that addresses your question, the final maturity on the bonds, sorry, just looking for it right here, and final maturity is, of course, now that I'm looking, it's taking a little bit, but I'm sorry, the final maturity here, it is 2032, so you still have 4 more callable years once you reach that call date.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the bond sale on May 18th, 2020. With no other discussion, I'll call the question. Councilor Deitch.
Aye.
Councilor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilor Kraus.
Aye.
Councilor Buller.
Aye.
And I will vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Thanks a lot, George.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
All right, now we're going to backtrack. We're going to go to the number I missed, which is number 7. Adopt a revised capital improvement plan with equipment additions. City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Briefly, the City Council had adopted a capital improvement plan that laid out the public works infrastructure projects we were proposing to complete over the next 5 years, and that was adopted last fall. And to have a complete picture of our major capital expenditures, staff has been working on including the equipment acquisitions that we have to make. And so we put some information together in your packet. So the first spreadsheet that has some colors on it lays out the sources and uses of funds for the proposed bond issue, as well as some other projects that we'll be doing over the course of the next 2 years, including the Highway 53 reconstruction project. The sheets following that identify different projects that will be performed and equipment that will be acquired, and it identifies those by funding source. So we've laid those out, and we're asking that the City Council consider this information and adopt a motion approving this preliminary capital improvement plan so that we can use this information in our upcoming conversations with Standard & Poor's, which will be the agency that will be rating our sales tax bonds. And then also we can use it for our preparations and planning for the upcoming 2021 budget and subsequent years. I would add that just in terms of the overall process and purpose for a capital improvement plan is that it allows us to do future planning, try and maintain relatively level levies, and spread our equipment acquisition and our public improvement projects equally from year to year to year, so that we don't have spikes and valleys in terms of those levies and other revenue sources that we have to use. So that's one of the values of having a capital improvement plan. So we want to further refine this information, but we're asking that the City Council adopt it as proposed in preliminary fashion now, and then we'll add some preliminary text and identify some highlights, and then have that information available for sure this summer for the budget preparation for 2021.
Okay. All right. Chair would entertain a motion to adopt the revised capital improvement plan.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilor Buller. Do we have a second? It's not looking good, Ken. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Councilor Kraus. We have a motion and second to adopt the capital improvement plan. Do we have any questions, concerns? I have one, and I guess it can be answered by Councilor Buller and/or Ken. The water main on Pleasant Avenue, that is still in the project for this summer, correct?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay, because I did have a meeting last Friday with the developers for the hotel, and they do plan on breaking ground this summer. So we do need that water main up and running, and I know that I did inform the developer that the likelihood of having Pleasant Avenue redone in 2020 or 2021 is not happening. So he is okay with that, but the water main is very important. But the project is moving forward. So good news there, and I just wanted to make sure that, because we had, Councilor Buller will know, we had lots of discussion about that in the Public Works meeting, was the water main and the road of Pleasant Avenue. But very good news, and very good news, they are moving forward with that project. So
That was one of the big concerns.
So good news there. Anything else on the capital improvement plan?
Mayor?
Yes.
I just want to emphasize that, again, that this is preliminary because I've had some challenges, and we've had some staff working at home that have been preparing some of this documentation. I haven't had an opportunity to work directly and face-to-face with any of the department heads other than one of them, and so there's been a little bit of difficulty in communicating and dealing with the details of this, and again, that's why I'm emphasizing it's preliminary in nature, because as we are able to work more closely together on details, it's going to be subject to some refinement.
Okay, sounds good. So we have a motion and second. I will call the question. Councilor Deitch.
Aye.
Councilor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilor Kraus.
Aye.
Councilor Buller.
Aye.
And I will vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Next is authorization distributing a request for proposal for professional services to prepare an updated pay equity job classification and related documents. Administrator Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. The city had submitted every 3 years we're required to submit a pay equity report, and we had visited with the council back in January when we were due to have our next report submitted by the end of the month, and we indicated that we expected to have we were non-compliant, and because of a number of issues, and so we submitted our report indicating that, and at that time the City Council authorized requesting that the Minnesota Management and Budget Office for pay equity allow us to have reconsideration of our pay equity report, and so as part of their process, they need to notify us of non-compliance, and then we need to submit a more formal request for reconsideration. And so that request is the last sheet in your packet of information. It's shown as option 2, request for reconsideration of pay equity non-compliance. And so we're asking that the City Council approve authorizing us to submit that in number 2 on that pay equity request, but we're also asking that because our pay equity system goes back to the 1980s and used a controlled data business systems job classification system, over the decades we've had so many changes in positions and in titles and duties and responsibilities in the various job classifications that we think it's appropriate now to update that job classification system and go to one where we can refine and reevaluate the job descriptions, make sure that they're up to date, and then assign appropriate points through that new job classification system. And that's really the essential part that we need in order to be able to move forward with our pay equity system. And it's just antiquated because of it's been difficult to keep up with the revisions and new positions that we've created over the years. So we're asking for the authority to send out a request for proposal form, and then we would get proposals from professional service firms that can do this type of work, and then bring that back to the City Council for consideration and a decision about whether or not you want to allocate the funds to move forward with that process. So the motion is twofold. One, to allow us to move forward with the RFP process, and then secondly, to authorize signatures on the request for reconsideration form for submittal to the Minnesota Office of Management and Budget.
So we don't operate as if we're 1980 anymore?
Well, that would be the hope with a revised pay equity or pay classification system.
Oh, wonderful.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, what we've been using for a number of years isn't appropriate. It's just that our positions have changed, and we just don't have the information available because the company went out of business a long time ago, and we actually sent out a listserv request for other clerks to offer and provide that to us, and nobody responded. So I don't know how many other jurisdictions are actually using it anymore, at least at a city level.
Right. So the chair would entertain a motion for a request for a RFP, a request for professional services, and also secondly to submit and authorize signatures for the reconsideration for non-compliance. Chair would entertain a motion at this time.
So moved. Councilor Deitch, so moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Deitch. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Kraus. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the question. Councilor Deitch.
Aye.
Councilor Kraus, or I'm sorry, Councilor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilor Kraus.
Aye.
Councilor Buller.
Aye.
And I will vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Any other business to come before the council?
Mayor?
Yes. Please, Councilor Deitch.
Okay, just a couple short little things. With the ordinance approval on blight on the two issues, I would like to see a report at each council meeting from those responsible for the inspection and the enforcement, some kind of documentation or something that we have a hard copy on what contacts or citations they issue. And one of the reasons I'm requesting this is so we're kept up to date on what's happening and who's been contacted. I've been contacted a couple different times on various people that are concerned about blight. One of the main ones that I was contacted was Wagner Construction, Dennis Wagner. He was quite concerned about his neighbor to the south or to the north there, that he had contacted the city a couple times last year and really hasn't seen much of an improvement over there. As a matter of fact, it's probably getting worse. And I did go out and meet with him, and I did take a look at the situation, and he has reason to be concerned. And I believe that if we got a report on what was happening, this would help us to move along with our blight issues. We would know who has been contacted and what needs to be done. That's it.
I think that's a fair request.
Okay, my second item is nothing that has to do really with council or the city, is my computer died. So I'm going to be out of contact with the city and the city website until my new computer arrives, hopefully later this week.
Well, thank you. If anything emergency comes up, I will send you a text.
Sounds great, thank you.
All right. Any other business? Ken had something?
Yeah, Mayor, thank you, Council. The memo that I sent out this afternoon early via email was tied in with the action that the Council had considered regarding the emergency ordinance number 34 and then resolution number 28 for revision and updates, and you took action on that. I did want to draw your attention to some new legislation that was adopted at the end of last week and signed by Governor Walz, and it's Chapter 75 of the state statutes, and it was related to limited off-sale liquor sales for restaurants that have been closed by executive order. And essentially, they adopted an ordinance, and I emailed that to you in an attachment, so hopefully you can see it, but it does allow a qualifying licensee to offer off-sale sales of malt liquor, hard seltzer, cider, and wine with a prepared food takeout order, and you could do that without obtaining an additional license. And then there were several limitations that were identified, and essentially it has to be an original unopened packaging, can have no more than 72 ounces in total of malt liquor, hard seltzer, cider, and 750 milliliters of wine can be sold per takeout order. So there were some limitations on it. I want to draw the council's attention to one of the provisions in the law that says the governing body of a municipality may elect to prohibit the off-sale of alcoholic beverages authorized by this new legislation. So given that this was just adopted and signed by the governor on Friday, it became effective the next day, Saturday, I'm asking for the city council to consider whether or not you want to allow our businesses to be able to sell off-sale liquor with food orders, or if you want to take action to prohibit that. And so I just want to have a clarification. And then if the council has no objection to that, I want to make sure that our businesses are aware that they can do that have current licenses.
Council's thoughts on that one?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I have to say that I'm okay with it, and here's my reasoning. Basically what they're allowing them to take is prepackaged items in their original packaging, and the truth of the matter is most of these items have an expiration date, maybe not the wine so much, but the seltzer, cider, malt liquor certainly would. So I guess it would be an opportunity for the restaurants that have a license to sell such things to offload some of their inventory potentially before it expires. We don't know what the governor is going to do with the stay-at-home order, but a lot of these businesses are closed for upwards of 45 days to not sell this stuff. So it might be an opportunity for them to not have to throw it away. That's just my opinion on the matter.
Oh my gosh, that's a really good thought. I hadn't thought about that with the expiration date of stuff. That's a really good point. Anybody else?
I'm okay with it. I just thought if you can pick up food, why can't you pick up a beer?
Right.
If it's bottled, I mean.
Yeah, no, that's.
But Joe has more calculated response.
Well, I'll take it. I'll dumb the whole thing down a bit. I love that we're going back to the Old West. You wear masks and handkerchiefs over your face. You go to the saloon, get yourself a beer, go home. I mean, this is what it's the Old West, guys. I love it. No, I'm fine with. We don't have to take any action then if we're supportive of it. Correct?
I think that's correct. Yes.
Councilor Deitch, Councilor Buller, do you have any concerns over this?
I'm fine. I think it's fine too. I just heard a song today that says there's no I in beer. You gotta drink with somebody, there's no I in beer. So.
Oh, this is a much funner council than I've been on before. All right, we have any other new business? All right. Reports of boards, committees, department heads, city administrator.
Mayor, I don't have anything further.
City attorney, I don't believe you're on, but you might be.
I don't know, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm here, Mayor, councilors. I've been doing all of our criminal work with the courts, either by Zoom or over the phone, but those things are continuing. And other than that, dealing with the city, I've been working with City Administrator Anderson on updating some of these ordinances and things, but it's been quieter than normal, just trying to stay safe. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Department heads? All right. In your packet, you did get the police monthly report for March. Also, Chief Manassa offered the fire rescue EMS monthly report. I do see, I think we have building inspectors online. Kelly, do you have anything to add? And take that as a formal no. So then we'll go down to the reports of the mayor, council, committees, boards, and commissions. I don't have anything. Any council members or committees have anything to bring forward?
Nope.
Okay, and then we go to boards and commissions. No boards and commissions. So at this point, I will unmute everybody. We're at audience open forum. Does anyone have anything to bring forward to the council at this time? All right. You can stay on the line. We're going to take about a 5-minute break. Well, not even a 5-minute break, like a 2-minute break. And then we're going into an EDA meeting, which is a real riot. We love it. So without having anything else to come before the city council, this meeting is adjourned.